All right, now all this week on Street Smart, we are looking at the economics of Hollywood. We kick off this special series with the little studio that could. Laika is the studio that we're talking about here. Little known, but it's responsible for the Oscar-nominated animated film Coraline. The movie cost about $65 million to make and grossed nearly twice that amount, pulling in $121 million worldwide. The CEO of the company is Travis Knight. He joins us now from Portland, Oregon, to talk about the challenging and changing dynamics of the animated feature business. Travis, thanks for coming on the show. Let me ask you, first of all, about the size of this market, because it seems more and more animated films are coming out, and they're starting to gross the kind of numbers that we're used to seeing with top star live action movies. Is this just a hugely growing segment, and how big are we talking here?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that over the last decade, we've seen a new kind of golden age of animation. And when you look at the top performers of the year in the film business, typically they're peppered with animated films. I think when you see that animated films are focused at family audiences, there's a great appeal, and I think that's why we're seeing the sort of it start to generate more and more competition in this field, and we're happy to be a part of that.
Travis, how competitive is the field at this point?
It's extremely competitive. I mean, the great thing for me is when you look at those films that have been nominated this year, there's a strength and a diversity. So we have, films from Disney and Pixar, we have DreamWorks, Sony, Aardman, all different forms of animation are represented, and but it's increasingly competitive, so it's increasingly difficult to stand out.
Let me ask you, when you went to make Coraline, I mean, how tough was it to bring it to be, if you will? Did you have a lot of people competing for it, or not necessarily?
No, going back 5 years ago when we were initially trying to find a distribution partner for Coraline, nobody knew who we were. We were completely unknown quantity. And, going back and looking at the animation landscape at that time, it was largely, glossy computer graphics with tales of fuzzy woodland creatures and pop culture jokes and that sort of thing. And here we come with our kind of weird, creaky, anachronistic, stop-motion horror film for kids. So, no, people weren't climbing over themselves to try to get a part of this movie. But eventually we did find a partner in Focus Features and in Universal. They've been a great partner, and they really excel at marketing unusual films in interesting ways.
You caught my attention when you said 5 years ago. I mean, how long did it actually take this movie to make, and is that that timeline getting shorter and shorter?
No, the pace is glacial. I mean, you're talking about people who are working on just small segments of, frames at a time, fractions of seconds, using, moving things a millimeter at a time. It takes a long time to make these things. An animator would typically generate anywhere from 2 to 7 seconds of finished animation a week, so it's a slow process.
Is that why it costs so much? I mean, looking at the price tag here, $65 million. It costs more to make this movie than Precious brought in the theaters. It seems expensive to me, is it not?
It is expensive. I mean, the large portion of that is, labor costs. Because these things take so long to do, and you need scores of artists and technicians and dreamers making these things, it is relatively expensive. Now, because we're doing things that are a little bit more unusual and, in my mind, a little more thematically interesting, we have the additional pressure of bringing the cost down. So, yeah, animated films are expensive, but our method is to try to keep things down lower than some of our competitors, because we're doing more riskier sorts of projects.
Travis, got about 45 seconds left here. So what's next for you guys? Are a lot of people knocking at the door following the success of Coraline?
Yeah, the good thing is that after the experience that we had 5 years ago trying to find partners and not a lot of people being interested, now finally they understand what we're trying to do, and so that's very exciting. We've put our next production into pre-production, and we plan on going into production later this year. So we'll have another film out in the marketplace probably another couple of years. Do you grow then?
Do you grow then? Because I noticed you fired 65 people right before the release of Coraline, and then you fired another 65 people about at the end of last year.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to try to balance kind of what our creative vision is and the kind of the corporate architecture. And part of the challenge is to bring the size of the organization in line with the creative vision. And so we're now at a point where we are structuring the organization around our films rather than some other permutation of that. And that's our focus now.
It's all about balancing the economics. Hey, Travis, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Travis Knight, CEO of Laika, joining us.